All right, welcome to today's episode. Today's episode is Are You Hooked by the News? And so what we're looking at is all the stuff that we hear in the news, all the stuff we read in the news, all the things going on. And are you hooked by what you're listening to, what you're seeing, what's being reported? And so we wanted to look at the metaphysical science viewpoint of all the news. So welcome, Betty. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks.
All right. Anything you want to add as to what we're going to be exploring around all this?
Yeah, I've run into a little book of some of the philosophy of Thomas Merton. He's a spiritual leader, probably a Jesuit priest, I think. And anyway, this little book has some paragraphs about his thoughts on things, and he has a lot to say about the news. And so it was very timely for this particular discussion. And he never watches the news as it's occurring. And he has a deliberate reason for that. And to boil it down to the fine point here, he said, so when you hear news without the need to hear it, it treats you differently and you treat it differently.
Yeah.
I thought about President Biden and his report or comments and storytelling about the massacre in Tulsa that we heard over the weekend. And if that had been occurring during the weekend, think what the perception would be for a listening audience. But because it happened 100 years ago, look at the richness of the depth with which we heard that story this time around and learned for the first time that we actually had planes in the air dropping bombs on American citizens in an American town. Unheard of, do you know? But I don't see anybody running around the streets being outraged.
Right.
There's no march on the Capitol. There's no excitement that way. But I think there's a lot of profound recognition that we've got stuff going on of which we may not have been aware, but we've got stuff to take care of. So we do treat it differently when we hear it not happening at that moment.
Right. Something that's historical, but it's not now.
Yes. And even the daily news, I think I've lived most of my life hearing the news maybe a couple of days later or a week later, because I don't often tune in right at the time of, because I don't want to be stirred up with my human opinions and my indignation and my what I know about it, what could be done about it, and so on and so on. And so one of the things that Merton says is that I'll read it to you. We're so obsessed with doing that we have no time and no imagination left for being.
Right.
It's easy.
Well, I'm reading a book right now that dovetails with that basically says we're so busy trying to play with the material, move around the material pieces of the chessboard, if you will, that we have no space for being, or even being considerate of being, or being consciously aware of the facts of what really constitute being.
Yep.
And when you're there, all you can do is be past-based. That's all past-based living.
That's right.
And it doesn't create, it doesn't create the future. It doesn't live in possibility. What it does is it enforces the past and the look of the past.
And you live in reaction.
Yes.
There's no room for creative.
That's correct. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all about,
Well, that's the kind of thing we're talking about here.
Right. Very good. Very, very good. I like it. So we are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. Our website is scientificmetaphysics.org, and you can go there and you can find different materials that are available, different events that are available that you might want to participate in, and feel free to go and check that out. That would be great. And of course, we'll continue on now with this. So diving into this subject, in Christian Science Re-Explored, Margaret Laird says on page 132, a comment in the Los Angeles Times of January 4th, 1971, by an anthropology professor at UCLA is pertinent to our point. And here's the quote: "Man, as conceived today, is already obsolescent."
Yeah. Yeah. We're already, if you can see it, feel it, hear it, taste it, touch it, it's already occurred.
Right. There's no creativity there at all. All it is it's a reporting on the past.
Yeah. So there's no ability to impact the stuff. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of a human happening.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to read the next couple of sentences following that.
Okay.
So, the man of imagination, maintaining the absolutely neutral position of principle, with no pro this and anti that, is the one who will discover the steps and the techniques for communication leading to the abolishment of war.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see, it can't come out of the past. There was a quote, I think you've heard it before, from Einstein that says, you can't solve the problem from within the arena of the problem.
Right.
You have to step outside of it. And the reason for that is you can't solve anything in the past. You have to be standing right now and moving forward to make any impact at all.
Right. And most of us, and you could say it this way, you could say where you've got to be is on the edge of the unknown. And and most people can't even tolerate being on the edge of the unknown for longer than a split second, because everything comes flooding in.
Right. And
it's real discipline.
The thing about it is they're not aware of that. Most people think that when they dwell on what they're hearing explained, like in the news right now, they think that they can do something about it. But if they're hearing it, it's past.
Right.
And I don't think people are aware of that. You want to live yourself so that your every moment has meaning, has impact, has creative possibility. We really, there's a mental component in metaphysical science, in living this science, that all is infinite mind. It is. And mind action is never in the past. No action is in the past. It's over. It's dead. You need to be standing right on that brink, right on the edge, and moving with what now? What now? What now? Yeah.
Right. So let's go on to the next quote from Christian Science Re-Explored by Margaret Laird on page 135. Our world is what it is because we are what we are.
Yeah. And the other thing you begin to realize as you get familiar with metaphysical science is that you're always talking to yourself. You're always dealing with who you are. Who am I being right now? Right now. Right now. And that's not an easy place to stand, but it's the only effective place.
Right.
You have anything to say about who you be, what you're doing, and what's coming up in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so when you say our world is what it is because we are what we are.
Yeah. This is the way it has to look because this is what I'm being right now.
Yeah. It's the only way I can see, the only view of perfection I've got.
Yep. The view I've got right now is looking at reality, and this is the way it looks to be.
Yeah.
And so we pay attention to our seeing.
Yeah.
Is this way it is, or is this the way I see it? It's
Yeah.
always the way I see it, because we live the world as we are, not as it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clear. Very good. Okay. I like this. All right. Now, from your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 141, you wrote, what is assumed to be my conscious awareness and your conscious awareness is language defining the degree of ownership we accept of the world we are walking through. So unpack that a bit. So what is assumed to be my conscious awareness and your conscious awareness over here, your conscious awareness is language, the seen, heard, and felt language defining the degree of ownership we accept. So tell me about a little bit more about that, to the degree of ownership we accept.
Yeah. Well, the fact is that I can only impact or be impacted by my ownership, my awareness that I make a difference in my life.
Yeah.
Where I'm standing, my perception, if you will, originates right here with me.
Yeah.
And the only place that I can make a difference in my experience of living is with my perception, my understanding, my willingness to look, my willingness to see.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that metaphysical science helps and gives me a tool is that I do have the capacity to, how can I say that? I do have the capacity to live an awareness that what I'm looking at is a point of view rather than a fact. Mm-hmm. So that I can say, I wonder what else is there. Well, if all is infinite mind, then what are the characteristics of infinite mind? Because that's what's present. Mm-hmm. What is the possibility of infinite being? That's what's present. So even though I can't see the God idea in action, as it were, I can work with it because I'm aware that my point of view isn't all that's going on. Mm-hmm. And it may not look like my point of view at all when I become aware of what's going on. And I leave it alone either way, being willing to see what else has reality got going on here? Yeah. What else is the God idea presenting that's my being? And it takes me into a whole new territory of possibility.
Yeah, very good. All right. Now on page 142 of your book, Mind is the Athlete, you wrote, the belief in your consciousness or my consciousness as if a division were possible is a myth.
Yep.
And there is only one thing going on. It's the world I walk through. So I don't know that you exist. I know that I exist. So my experience of you is my experience of Betty.
Yeah, it's your conscious infinitude of being, to use those big words that Mary Baker Eddy used, because man is the conscious infinitude of existence. Mm-hmm. So I am the same way. I don't know for sure there's anything out there, but I know that I'm all there is in my world. So my infinitude of being, my enormous, infinite capacity to be, is the world I walk through. Mm-hmm. And I see it all around me. When I lose it, now this goes back to the ownership thing we talked about at the beginning. But as I walk through it, if I think it's out there, there's nothing I can do with it. It's just like looking at a picture or something. It means nothing for me. But when I understand that that's me walking through my own infinite being, then the way I see it, the way I work with it, the way I live it is up to me. Mm-hmm. It isn't up to anything else. It isn't because of the weather. It isn't because of somebody talking to me. Right. Because I'm the weather I have, and I'm the one talking to myself.
Right.
and I deal with it within myself. So I don't have to have war to recognize that peace and joy and power is what's present.
Mm-hmm.
If things blow up, I say, oh, okay, now what?
Right.
Yeah, but I'm standing like in right now, not in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we're watching the news, if you get hooked by the news,
You want to get a little distance on it. You want to see that all the stuff they're talking about is actually in the past already. Already, like right now, it's all in the past.
right.
Everything I said 5 seconds ago is gone. It's over. Yeah. It's in the past. And when you know that it's in the past, then you don't get excited to do something about that. You're right away on the brink of what next? What do I want to see? How do I want to live now? What's true? And it's all predicated on who am I being?
Right.
Consciously aware or asleep at the switch.
Okay. I like that. Viscerally aware or asleep at the switch. Okay.
Yeah.
So on page 144 in your book, you said conclusions we have made based on conceptual evidence, the seen, heard, and felt, educated judgments, evaluations, and the appearances of events shape our human experience of living. So it's the conclusions we've made that shape our human experience of living.
Yeah, I look and I decide. Well, what's the basis of my...
Right. Yeah, I was doing fine until Joe over there did blah, blah, blah. And
yeah, and it's because I don't own that. I've got Joe over there.
Right.
I'm not being all there is consciously.
Yeah.
I have to leave the allness of my world huge, because that's the way infinitude is. That's the way infinity operates.
Yes.
Nothing is ever repeated. Nothing's ever the same. It moves and it changes faster than the speed of light. And that's my being. And everything is possible. And it's always possible.
Peace. Well, no, you said this thing to me when I was in I think in my first job or something. Anyway, so it was when I was a lot younger than I am now. And you said to me, Kim, you've got this fatal flaw. One fatal flaw. And I said, really, only one? What is it? And you said, you believe that anything is possible for anyone. And I said, well, isn't it? And you said, no, it's only possible if they see it as possible.
Yep.
And that took a huge burden off, quite frankly. It was a neat eye opener, but that's what you told me. And it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Each one is a law to its own being.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, from a Rethink Quarterly article, and our Rethink Quarterly is a newsletter that we put out every quarter. Our Rethink Quarterly article one of them said, problems occur to highlight divine facts that are their solution. Solutions acknowledged, dissolve problems, accessing new frontiers of discovery.
Yeah. Read that again.
Problems occur to highlight divine facts that are their solution.
Yeah, just think about that. That means that the solution requires an access point. It requires a way for you to see it. Guess what that way is?
The problem.
Yeah.
So problems are really access points.
Guess why I have a problem? Because I'm ready to see a new fact.
Right.
And it's showing up if I allow it.
Right. Okay, good. I like that. Problems are access points.
Yeah.
Very good.
The solutions acknowledged dissolve problems. When I see the solution, there's no problem anymore. It's gone. Yeah. So that accesses a whole new, what's this? A new frontier.
Right.
A whole new possibility of living.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, I get that. That's cool. All right. In Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy said the design of love is to reform the sinner. Ooh, I'm not sure that I like that sentence, but let's unpack it. The design of love is to reform the sinner.
Mm-hmm. What's a sinner?
Someone not living their truth.
Anybody that believes in more than one thing going on. It isn't like a sinner is bad and wrong. They're just blind. They think all that stuff is out there, separate from them, and not their fault. No, the world does all these crazy things, not my fault.
Right.
Guess who's looking at it and finding fault? Guess who's looking at it and wondering who's going to fix that? Guess who's looking at it and saying somebody needs to come and help me? You know, all of that comes right back in, oh, it must be me, for heaven's sakes. So I live it as a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
And when the solutions occur, all those problems fall away. But guess what? There's always a new one. There's always another truth there for me to see. So there's always going to be another problem showing up to highlight that, to open a window and say, look in here, Betty.
So we're just ongoingly being reformed.
We're ongoingly expanding who we are.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is if we were to look at this language,
that not a reform, because
okay, well then if it's the reform the sinner, it's basically saying if I can say, oh wow, I got it. I've been believing that cause is in the language. Okay, fine. What this says is the design of love is to reform the sinner. Reform.
Yeah, but that transform because I'm not the sinner.
But you might be.
No. The sinner is a belief.
So there's no such thing as a sinner.
That's right. If you're not a believer.
Okay,
if you're not hooked with a belief, there's no sinner.
Oh, so as soon as you're hooked with a belief, there's the sinner. A belief, a judgment, opinions, all that stuff, is that?
Yep.
And so the design of love, capital L, which is
the God idea.
The God idea, divinity, divine presence, consciousness, all of that. So the design of love, capital L, is to reform all of that, to say, you are all.
Dispose of it.
Yeah. Let it go. Let that go. Let it be.
Yep.
And be willing to have it be exactly the way it's showing up.
Yeah. So in a sense, you might say that conscious awareness is like a disposal. Down all that stuff goes.
And you just drop it all. Just drop it.
And it does not require laborious, tedious, time-consuming stuff. It just means, oh, all right, on I go. Oh, that's okay. Willing.
Yeah, very good.
Yep.
All right. And on page 249 of Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy says, let us rejoice that we are subject to the divine powers that be. Such is true science of being.
Such is the true science of being. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's what we've been talking about.
Yep.
And then actually our final quote for tonight from Science and Health, page 556, mortal mind must awaken to spiritual life. And when that awakening comes, existence will be on a new standpoint.
Yep.
And that's also the willingness. It's like when we can drop our attachment to the past and we're willing to have it just show up, then new things can appear and we can actually see them.
Yeah. And you might take a look at the perception of courage that's involved there. We think that it's scary to stand in possibility without knowing for sure what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a worse condemnation on yourself to be stuck in the past.
Yeah.
That's really dead living.
Right.
If you can use living that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it is far more freeing, far more supportive of well-being to be willing to look at what now, because
Right.
what now is always grounded in perfection. It's divine love taking care of the whole thing.
Right.
Way better than Betty could.
Yeah. Very good. Now I want to see, are there any questions? We have a comment. Very good, y'all. All right. So Sandy Jackson says, letting go, allowing all is one, perfect, whole, complete, and harmonious, infinitely now is all there is, was, or ever can be.
Sure. Thanks. Very well done.
So yes. The short answer, yes. All right. And are there any other questions or comments? And is there anything else that you want to say about, are you hooked by the news?
Well, we have a lot of alarming news going on. Talking about President Biden's comment on Memorial Day, it's just the most recent one I've heard. But we have a lot of stuff coming up every night in the news. And I just invite you to stand in now instead of in the past. Let it report on what has already occurred, and then think, how's that shaping my next step? How is that shaping who I'm being in the matter of my world being free and lovely and full of joy, peaceful?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I being? Just think, if all of us did that, what would happen?
Mm-hmm.
Our whole vista would shift.
Right.
And answers would show up faster than we could accommodate them almost.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. All right. And with that, I want to tell you that we will be here same time next week at 7 p.m. Central and 5 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday. And if you're enjoying this, we are a nonprofit, and we would love, if you feel the urge, we would love any donations. Just go to scientificmetaphysics.org/donate. All right. And until next week, we will see you then.
I have one thing. If anybody has a subject that they would like us to discuss, let us know. We can certainly include it one of these evenings.
All right. Very good. All right. So that's it. We'll see you all next week.
Okay.